Hey everyone, my name is Nicole. I am one of the pastors here at The Crossing. This is your Friday morning devotional. It is really good for us to get to be together again this morning, and today is a special day. Today is Good Friday. It's the day that we remember what Jesus did for all of us so that we could all truly be in this together, so that we could all have complete access to God's love and power all of the time. And so I thought in honor of today, I would actually read the story of Good Friday from one of my very favorite Bibles. It is for kids, but it is still one of my very favorite Bibles for everybody. And it's the Jesus Storybook Bible. And I'm gonna read from the night before when Jesus leads his friends through the very first communion, and then all the way through Jesus giving his life for us. So if you have kids in the house with you, you can grab them and watch this with them. This story is for all of us. Here we go. Then Jesus picked up some bread and broke it. He gave it to his friends. He picked up a cup of wine and thanked God for it. He poured it out and shared it. My body is like this bread. It will break, Jesus told them. This cup of wine is like my blood. It will pour out. But this is how God will rescue the whole world. My life will break and God's broken world will mend. My heart will tear apart and your hearts will heal. Just as the Passover lamb died, so now I will die instead of you. My blood will wash away all of your sins and you'll be clean on the inside, in your hearts. So whenever you eat and drink, remember, Jesus said, I've rescued you. Jesus knew it was nearly time for him to leave the world and to go back to God. I won't be long with you, he said. You are going to be very sad, but God's helper will come. And then you'll be filled with a forever happiness that won't ever leave you. So don't be afraid. You are my friends, and I love you. Then they sang their favorite song and walked up to their favorite place, a garden. The wind was picking up now in the garden, blowing clouds across the moon, shrouding the garden in darkness. Stay up with me, Jesus asked his friends. They said yes, and waited under the olive trees, but they were tired, and soon they fell asleep. Jesus walked ahead alone into the dark. He needed to talk to his heavenly Father. He knew it was time for him to die. They had planned it long ago, he and his Father. Jesus was going to take the punishment for all the wrong things anybody had ever done and ever would do. Papa, Father, he cried, and he fell to the ground. Is there any other way to get your children back, to heal their hearts, to get rid of the poison? But Jesus knew there was no other way. All the poison of sin was going to have to go into his own heart. God was going to pour into Jesus's heart all the sadness, all the brokenness in people's hearts. He was going to pour into Jesus's body all the sickness in people's bodies. God was going to have to blame his son for everything that had gone wrong. It would crush Jesus. But there was something else, something even more horrible. See, when people ran away from God, they lost God. It was what happened when they ran away. Not being close to God was like a punishment. Jesus was going to take that punishment. Jesus knew what that meant. He was going to lose his Father. And that Jesus knew would break his heart in two. Violent sobs shook Jesus' whole body. Then Jesus was quiet like a lamb. I trust you, Papa, he said. Whatever you say, I will do. Suddenly, through the trees, a glitter of starlight flashed off steel. Into the quiet garden came whispers, muffled voices, clanking metal, and the sound of boots marching. Jesus stood up. He woke his friends. Now is the time, he said gently. Everything that was written about me, what God has been telling his people all through the long years, it's all coming true. And into the night, with burning torches and lanterns, with swords and clubs and armor, they came, an army of soldiers. Judas led them straight to Jesus so they could arrest him. Jesus was waiting for them. Peter leapt up, took a sword, and tried to defend Jesus. He sliced off a guard's ear. Jesus immediately touched the guard and healed him. Peter, He said, "This is not the way." Peter didn't realize that no army, no matter how big, could ever arrest Jesus, not unless Jesus let them. Then Jesus, who had never done anything except love people, was arrested, as if he were a criminal. Jesus' friends were afraid, so they ran away and they hid in the dark shadows. The guards marched Jesus off and took him to the leaders. The leaders put Jesus on trial. "Are you the Son of God?" they asked. "I am," Jesus said. "Who do you think you are to call yourself God? You must die for calling yourself the Son of God." Only the Romans were allowed to kill prisoners, so the leaders made a plan. "We'll tell the Romans, this man wants to be our king, and they will crucify him." But it would be all right. It was God's plan. "It was for this reason that I was born into the world," Jesus said. "So you're a king, are you?" the Roman soldiers jeered. "Then you'll need a crown and a robe, huh?" They gave Jesus a crown made of thorns and put a purple robe on him and pretended to bow down to him. "Your Majesty," they said. Then they whipped him and spat on him. They didn't understand that this was the Prince of Life, the King of heaven and earth, who had come to rescue them. The soldiers made him a sign, "Our King," and nailed it to a wooden cross. They walked up a hill outside the city. Jesus carried the cross on his back. Jesus had never done anything wrong, but they were going to kill him the way criminals were killed. They nailed Jesus to the cross. "Father, forgive them," Jesus gasped. "They don't understand what they're doing." "You say you've come to rescue us?" people shouted, "but you can't even rescue yourself." But they were wrong. Jesus could have rescued himself. Legions of angels could have flown to his side if he'd called. "If you were really the Son of God, you could just climb down off that cross," they said. And of course, they were right. Jesus could have just climbed down. Actually, he could have just said a word and made it stop. Like when he healed that little girl and stilled the storm and fed 5,000 people. But Jesus stayed. You see, they didn't understand. It wasn't the nails that kept Jesus there. It was love. "Papa," Jesus cried, frantically searching the sky. "Papa, where are you? Don't leave me." And for the first time and the last, when he spoke, nothing happened. Just a horrible, endless silence. God didn't answer. He turned away from his boy. Tears rolled down Jesus' face, the face of the one who would wipe away every tear from every eye. And even though it was midday, a dreadful darkness covered the face of the world. The sun could not shine, the earth trembled and quaked, the great mountains shook, rocks split in two until it seemed that the whole world would break apart, that creation itself would tear apart. The full force of the storm of God's fierce anger at sin was coming down on his own son, instead of his people. It was the only way God could destroy sin and not destroy his children whose hearts were filled with darkness. Then Jesus shouted out in a loud voice, "It is finished." And it was. He had done it. Jesus had rescued the whole world. "Father," Jesus cried, "I give you my life." And with a great sigh, he let himself die. As we remember Good Friday, we remember what it costs to love each other sometimes, and it can be hard. But we also know on the other side of Good Friday, there is Easter. So it's okay to spend a couple days remembering that life is hard, but that on the other side of those difficult times, there is something even better than we could ever imagine. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks for being here this morning.